in our community calls. Before the beginning, I want to introduce our growth manager, Susan. Susan is pretty familiar with Polkadot ecosystem, and he also worked for Akala before. So with the help of Susan, our teams and our Tapio protocol, I think we will move forward better than before. So maybe Susan can have a short introduction to the community.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. You may know me from Akala Network. So I did actually work there as a community manager for several months. And then, of course, I had to move on when the aUSD issue happened, basically. Um, Prior to that, though, I have worked in many startups here and there, and I have also started my own startup. So I'm no stranger to, small teams that are really early stage building new things. Um, and that's what kind of drew me to Nuts Finance. So my focus at Nuts will be, Tapio specifically, will be growth and marketing, not only from a TVL and user base point of view, but also when it comes to, I guess, the business development side. So getting lots of integrations and partnerships going. So one of my key focuses and priorities is kind of getting tDOT to become multi-chain as soon as possible. Um, of course, we don't want to rush anything, and this is Polkadot, where things, famously do take a while. But that is one of my key priorities, just to get not only if you guys are paying attention to the development, we've also rolled out or working on currently our XCM stable asset palette, which will enable not only the minting of not only the redeeming of tDOT on other chains besides Akala, but also the minting of tDOT using local liquidity pools on other chains. They could be like Moonbeam, Asta, and so on. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at Tapio. Vincent, do you want to go ahead?
So let's get into the agenda of the community today.
Sure. So I'll just share my screen. Hopefully it's too blurry. So for whatever reason, the slideshow just doesn't want to work. That's okay. We'll work through it. So let's start off with something light. So you guys, if you're paying attention to our Twitter, you may have seen that we just got an integration to Multifarm, which is kind of like a yield aggregator, and they're kind of spreading into Kusama. So this will be really cool for people who are actually using that service to get a little bit more, obviously not every UI is everyone's favorite. So multi-farm sort of serves as a way for just an additional user base to kind of get familiar with not only tDOT, but TaiKSM and our 3 pool as well. Moving on. Oh, and just as a preface, this is my first time hosting a community call, so I'm still getting my bearings. Just sorry if I'm kind of all over the place. So second up, we have the Tapio dApp, and as many of you might know, we already have the V2 of Taiga already live, which shows you kind of the yield breakdowns for not only TaiKSM, but the 3 pool as well. This information has been requested by quite a few users. They might not understand, for example, with tDOT, is the 25% you're getting, is that all an additional dot? Is that in ACA? Like, they don't actually know how it's broken down. So hopefully this provides a little bit more transparency in terms of what you're actually receiving when you're contributing and staking tDOT. Something that will be coming down the line will be automated claiming. So I know a lot of people are obviously quite frustrated in that it's kind of like a manual process of claiming, and then payments are only paid out every week or so, and then of course we have the delay with the whole aUSD issue, and so kind of automating that entire process, I think, will just be quality of life improvements for everyone using tDOT. On top of that, you don't actually have to necessarily go to Akala now to mint and redeem your tDOT. You can actually do it just within our application. if you don't want to say, interact with the rest of Akala's UI, you can just go to our application instead. Some really big news is that we just closed a $4 million round for Tapio. And this is from some really, I guess, prestigious Web3 investors like Polychain and Arrington Capital, as you may have heard in the media. They've funded quite a lot of projects, not only in Sama, but throughout the rest of the crypto ecosystem as well. So this is quite a big deal for us because going back to what I mentioned earlier about how my focus is, and I guess the team's focus is now getting tDOT onto other chains and not have to be only on Akala. This will definitely help us out, but also allow us to build other things that might be um, conducive, I guess, to our place in the ecosystem. So that'll be really interesting as well. Um, and of course, I really want to thank everyone, not only the people who are here today, but just the entire community. Even at my time at Akala, I was a really big fan of how engaged the Taiga and Tapio community was with the application, and not only with the team as well. So I'm coming to really appreciate that sort of close knit relationship we have with our user base. So this is really good news. We'll have more and more announcements coming out soon, but I'll go into them a little bit later. So this is something that I really wanted to get into, was how did tDOT actually perform during the aUSD issue? Because of course we saw that a ton of liquidity pools on Akala were just, instantly drained. Bad actors were swapping their erroneously minted aUSD for, anything they could get their hands on, namely ACA and DOT. ACA's side, when people were kind of going after DOT, that of course drained the tDOT pool because that was the largest, pool of DOT. And I'll actually go into the dashboard, so you can access this from the application. But something that I really want to go to is kind of the date of the actual when this all went down, which was the 14th of August, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, this is kind of on this scale. It doesn't look, so bad. It looks okay. It's like a slight dip, but if you have a look at hopefully it's not too blurry that you can actually see this. Um, but we were like around the 35% dot, 65% L dot. That's kind of like the sweet spot for where we want our tDOT pool composition. Um, and so, things were going well. And then, of course, the bad actor kind of kicked in. All of the aUSD that they were able to get uh, erroneously, they just started pulling out as much DOT as they possibly could. And that kind of just, basically the amount of DOT in the tDOT pool just fell off a cliff. It went from around 35% all the way down to, I think it was around 2.6% at its very lowest, which is not good in the slightest, as you can probably imagine. The good news is, though, was our actual stable asset mechanism that kind of uh, basically determines the peg. And the way it does that, for people who aren't aware, is that basically if one of the assets in the pool is undersupplied, it will increase the discount on that asset. And vice versa, if something is oversupplied, it will, oh, sorry, if something is oversupplied, it will increase the discount on that asset. And if something is undersupplied, it will increase the premium on that asset. And so what that means in simple terms is that when the pool was, 97% L dot, it became ridiculously cheap to get that L dot. And so what people would do was that this would open up an arbitrage opportunity where if you deposited DOT or you supplied DOT, you were able to get more than one DOT's worth of L dot back because of the discount that was applied on L dot by the stable asset palette as a way to kind of balance the pool. And what that resulted in, obviously, very quickly, people became knowledgeable of this arbitrage opportunity that, it's free money essentially, and you're instantly able to redeem it, with the assumption that L dot is sound, which, of course it is. Um, and so very quickly, over a span of 6 hours or so, that dropped to 2.6% quickly recovered to around the 20% mark, which isn't between our 30 to 40% target, but it's a whole lot better than 97% L dot and 3% dot. And so then it recovered to around 20% dot and 80% L dot, which is a lot healthier. And then of course the aUSD network pause came into place. On this scale, you can kind of see how crazy the drop of L dot composition was in tDOT. It was kind of all over the place here, which is fine. And then it just fell off a cliff. And then, of course, the network pause got instituted, and then nothing happened until it came back. And now we're sitting at a pretty decent 25%. It'll take us some time to kind of move up back to 35%, but this is more than fine. Like, this is perfectly okay. Something that I really want to, I guess, mention was when the when dot was only 2.6% of L dot, of tDOT, sorry, the entire pool was still collateralized around 106%, meaning that there was 106% worth of dot backing the tDOT that was in circulation. So despite it being so out of whack, it was still actually able to, you were still able to redeem, one tDOT for one dot, which at the end of the day is kind of the whole point of the pool. And I feel like this is, such an extreme case, that it really demonstrates that this tDOT and the stable asset palette has been stretched to the extreme, and it's recovered, and it didn't break. And all of our hypotheses that went into the development of it, they kind of came true. We saw that when something's completely out of whack, the discount kicks in, the premium on the other asset kicks in, and people start to pile in to take advantage of that arbitrage. And that's exactly what happened. I'll be publishing a much more in-depth article soon, hopefully within the next week, that actually breaks down the numbers, so, as well as links to this dashboard is freely available. If you didn't catch it before, if you go to the Taiga or the Tapio dApp, you can actually see all of this data, which is quite a bit of it. It could be presented a little bit more nicely with a little bit more clarification as to what this all means, but the data is really rock solid. I might actually do something to kind of explain how to use this a lot better, especially for people who are really concerned about, where the yield's actually coming from. So yeah, I hope that provided some insight into how tDOT went. But if you're still confused, I will send out that article hopefully within the next week, kind of breaking it down from first principles, so you can kind of see how tDOT's supposed to function, how it did function, and how it recovered as a result. So hopefully you got some value out of my rambling there. So what is next? So of course, if we look at the context of the $4 million raise, our priorities right now are hiring, not in a willy-nilly spray and pray fashion. We are still very constrained and controlled in how we're actually hiring. Not everything is a priority right now. We do have certain things that were in the backlog even prior to the fundraise that we need to make live, and only then we'll start the conversation of how do we actually add to the Tapio and Taiga product as a whole. um uh, I sound like a broken record. I keep repeating myself, so sorry for that. But our focus now is kind of getting TaiKSM and tDOT to be multi-chain. That is live on other chains, not only from an XCM fashion. Like, it's cool to be able to send tDOT to another chain and it having value and able to be used, but we want the core stable asset engine, the actual mechanism that allows this entire thing to work, to be natively able to be deployed on those parachains, so that, for example, this isn't one necessarily one we have in the works, but if you were to be using, say, VKSM from Bifrost, we want them to be able to make their own liquidity pools with VKSM and regular KSM. So that's kind of our priority right now. I guess slight bit of alpha. I'm focusing on the bigger players first, because I feel like that's where we get most of our progress and kind of traction from. And then we'll worry about all the smaller guys after that. I am taking a very controlled approach to it. I kind of want to get as many partnerships within our ecosystem before we make it live. rather than doing it one by one. So it's kind of like a big launch when it actually happens. So be on the lookout for that over the next couple of weeks to months. The other thing that we're focusing on is three pool on Akala. Now, of course, there is the huge elephant in the room. How can you have a three pool when one of the assets isn't really anywhere close to the value of the other assets in the pool? It doesn't really make sense as a stable pool. And you're completely right in that regard. At last, from what I recall most recently on KuCoin, it's around 55 cents. But that aside, KuCoin is kind of excluded. If I'm not mistaken, they don't allow you to send aUSD to Akala. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because the Oracle price on Akala it's closer to 80 cents. Which still isn't, a dollar. It's not back to where it used to be, but it is improving, day by day. So eventually, when the time comes that aUSD it's already fully collateralized, but the day comes that it's back to a dollar, then we can just pull the trigger and kind of get the three pool of USDC, USDT, and aUSD on Akala, which will be really good for some people, especially if you're holding stable coins, through a bear market where people aren't really expecting anything interesting to be happening. That'll be a good way to get return on your stable coins in a pretty simple and reliable fashion. The other thing is, of course, you guys might be familiar with Pike. So Pike Finance was announced at Polkadot Decoded a few months ago, and that is, of course, being built on Akala in collaboration with the Tapio team. So that's still in the works, no real ETA as of yet, because, of course, that's somewhat reliant on aUSD repegging as well. But I think that'll be very, very important to have a money market on Akala, because that also provides additional utility to our asset tDOT, which will be really important going into the future. That's all I had on my end. Vincent, I'll let you take over.
Thanks. For the last slide, it will be our ambassador programs, and we also welcomed and encourage everyone from the community to join our ambassador programs. We always looking for any talents. So yeah, if you are interested in our ambassador program, please just apply or reach out to me. And yeah, at the last section, we will be get into the AMA chat to see whether there's some questions in our community.
Yeah, sure. So I guess first question is, how do you buy Tapio tokens? So currently, Zartax did answer it, but I'll just reiterate. Currently, the TAP token isn't live, or rather hasn't been distributed yet, which is in the works. It'll be very important if we want to provide additional yield for tDOT. It could be in the form of our TAP token that represents Tapio. It could also be so we're currently experimenting with the idea of adding, well, actually, we already implemented it, adding KAR rewards to 3 USD on Karura. So of course, once we make Tap live on Akala, that can be an option once we make the three pool live, as well as additional incentives for tDOT staking as well. So yeah, Vincent, go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of the Tapio token, as mentioned, we don't actually is not circulate or distribute yet. So if you guys are interested in Tapio, just stay tuned with us, and once the Tapio token is circulating, and I believe we can have a swap, or we can have it on Akala DEX first. And let's move to the next questions.
Sure. So third asked, there used to be two Twitter accounts for Tapio and Taiga. Now there's only one. I know it's not the same, but why not only have one token to represent Taiga and Tapio? So you're completely right. There is only one Twitter account now. We felt that splitting our I guess marketing efforts and like interaction with the community was kind of not necessarily wasted, but there was a lot of people might only be following one and not the other. So we kind of want to consolidate and just provide because a lot of the news. You mentioned later that the code for both protocols is essentially the same, and that is somewhat true. And so as a result, the news is often overlapping. But at the end of the day, they are two completely separate protocols on two completely different parachains, on two completely different ecosystems. Um, it's the same as, the same logic could be applied to any of the Polkadot parachains, and that they have their Kusama equivalent. It's just the Canary network is simply a means to be able to implement things quickly. What I mentioned before regarding um, it takes a long time to integrate and kind of get things working in terms of partnerships on Polkadot. That is true on Kusama as well, but it's a lot quicker. People are more willing, I guess, not necessarily to take risks, but there's inherently an attitude of moving quickly in Kusama. That's kind of why we have, the three pool live on Kusama, but we don't have it live on Akala. A lot of it was the gauntlet, for example, the auditing of risk, but also it's kind of like, Kusama is where you experiment and Polkadot's where you really finalize not only your code, your products, your strategy, your roadmap, your vision. So that's why. Yeah, hopefully I answered your question. Does anyone else have any questions? It could be about anything. I'll try to be as upfront as possible. That unfortunately would be a gauntlet issue. And a better question for Karura, where all for it. We would have liked to have done this months ago, but until Gauntlet basically gives the AOK saying, "Yep, TaiKSM is fine and good to be collateral," only then can the Akala team actually implement it. And unfortunately, there's not really much we can do. We've done all we can to kind of push the conversation along. It's kind of in their hands, which is somewhat of a cop-out answer. I will admit that, but at the end of the day, there isn't really much we can do to kind of get that ball rolling. It's just a waiting game now.
And one thing I want to add is that the reason why we also want to push Pike forward is that we can use the TigerSam or tDOT as collateral with our more flexible parameter to borrow aUSD or other dot assets. But since the situation of aUSD and Akala, so we need to postpone the launch of Pi. But it's still
Yep.
we will still work on it. Just it may not come out soon as planned.
Right. Yeah, we had plans to release it. I believe the original plan that Dan from Akala said was Q3 of this year. Obviously, that hasn't happened. And of course, it's all because of the aUSD issue. Being that aUSD is so fundamental to a money market, having a stable coin, that kind of is what threw a spanner in the works. Once that's resolved, then we'll definitely be revisiting Pike because a lot of work has gone into it. We won't actually abandon it because just simply because of how much time, effort, and resources have been invested. Something you guys may not recall because it was so long ago is that Pike was actually enterprise ready from day one, meaning for people like institutions and enterprises that require KYC. Uh, Pike was going to have or is going to have a KYC component that allows the institutional investors to kind of take part in Akala and Dotsama, which will be just a ridiculous amount of added liquidity into the ecosystem. Is car going to be a reward for staking TaiKSM? Most likely. I'm not going to give an ETA, but we are obviously speaking with the Akala team to be adding the KAR token for the 3 USD, for the 3 pool staking. So eventually, but there's no real, because right now, because of the bear market, we do have to pay attention to just budget and runway effectively. I mean, we're just like any other tech company. We can't be willy-nilly, emitting tokens. So we do have to kind of work through that and be really methodical about how much we pay out, if any, and on what time scale. But we'll have more for that, in due time. Are there plans to list TAI on the central exchanges? Nothing. I guess nothing that's a priority right now. Eventually, for sure, but right now, I feel it's okay to be just on Karura. Maybe down the line we'll consider it. It's because we have so many things in the pipeline we're working on. It's just not a priority for us, in all honesty. I mean, you could make the argument that it doesn't really take much to, I guess, implement it, and that is true. But there is a lot of, I guess, back end things that we need to really think about first. So yeah, we just want to be prepared. We'll revisit listing TAI on centralized exchanges once we've kind of pushed out everything that we've got in our backlog. So at least not for the rest of the year. I'll say that. Yeah. So regarding the TaiKSM claim dashboard, just gonna have a look at it now just to get context. Yeah. So if you can see, sorry, I stopped streaming, but the KAR reward does show up in TaiKSM, but right now it's 0%. So yeah, that explains your question. It's current. We're talking with the Akala team, but we have nothing solid just yet. I think we only just got the KAR reward for the 3 pool. And they, of course, as you could probably understand, they're going through their own problems and they have to worry about budget on their end as well. So yeah, we'll have more news for you soon. Were there any other questions? Well, I hope Vincent and I answered your questions and we didn't really forget anything. Hopefully you got value out of this call, particularly how tDOT reacted to the aUSD issue. Vincent, I'll let you add anything you'd like.
All right. So if you guys have any question, we still can discuss in our chat channel. And thanks for you guys to join our community call. And let's see you guys in our next community call. And hope you guys have a nice day.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for everyone who showed up. Hopefully I'll be a lot more refined in the next community call. A lot more structure, hopefully. I've kind of rambled a little bit here and there, but that's okay. Yeah, thanks everyone. Hope you have a good day or night or evening, depending on where you are.
Thanks, guys. Bye.